Hey everyone, you're watching Ash on Comics, and my name is Ash, and here is today's comic. Look at that. Spider-Man, life story, into the 60s. By Chip Zdarsky, Mark Bagley, John Dell, Frank D'Armata. Number 1. This is a momentous occasion. Why, you might ask? This is the first Marvel comic that I have purchased in over 25 years. The first new Marvel comic that I've purchased in 25 years. I pretty much have been done with Marvel since I got back in. They've really disgusted me with their business practices, with their shitty stories, their gender politics, their social engineering, their drastic cutting of wages and page rates to employees, from firing like actual quality editorial staff to replace them with a bunch of milkshake loving interns that don't know what the hell they're doing, that don't even really want to be in comics, who say things like their lifelong dream was to work for some online gambling company. Like, of course, that was just a lie when she got fired from Marvel. Just like, oh, I'm really gonna got my lifelong dream job. Really, that's why you came back to fucking Valiant. In case you don't know who I'm talking about, it's Heather Antos, the milkshake girl. So yeah, I know there's some good stuff at Marvel. There's a few people trying to do good things, like I think Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman when they did their Venom series. I really think that those guys care about comics and want to do good stuff. Our boy Zach has been a big proponent of Chip Zdarsky, and I've been, and I hear he's kind of an a-hole. But this particular book I picked up because of, really, dogs, I swear to you, this is the fourth book I've recorded, the fourth video I've recorded today, and they don't do anything until it's like, oh, Ash is recording. Gotta go look out the dog door, gotta go drink some water. They're just lying quietly. It's so weird. Now it's become like a trope on my videos. Anyways, my boy Gateway into Comics did a video on this particular book, and I was so moved by his review and what I saw. I was like, you know what? I need to put my money where my mouth is. You know, I have very valid reasons not to get Marvel Comics. But this is a mini-series, and it's possible. I always tell people, and people say, oh, well, comics are good now. I was like, no. Name one comic in the last 20 years that goes down in the same category and level of legendary status like Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, Batman Year One, Kingdom Come, Infinity Gauntlet, Marvels. All these books, of course, are in the 90s or late 80s when comics were their best. And there's more books that just aren't coming to my mind. Name one series or miniseries or arc or whatever that goes down in that legendary status. Name one. There isn't. Name a book that's gone down like that made the impact like Sandman did. It's not just hero comics. From across the board, in the past 20 years, comics have taken a nosedive, and they're junk. And then I saw Gateway into Comics review on this particular book, and I was like, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, this is that book. This is that Marvel comic that'll finally be like, oh, we have some book that's going to go down, you know, in history as being like this great run, this classic title. So here we have, in 1962, a 15-year-old boy named Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider and gained the proportional speed, strength, and agility of a spider, adhesive fingertips and toes, and the unique precognitive awareness of danger called spider sense. After the tragic death of his Uncle Ben, Peter understood that with great power, there must also come great responsibility. He became the crime-fighting superhero called Spider-Man. This is chapter 1, The War at Home. And it was kind of a mixed blessing to see Mark Bagley doing the art on this. Because when I left comics back in the late 90s, the guy who was doing Spider-Man, Jesus dogs, the guy who was doing Spider-Man was Mark Bagley. And he was okay, right? By today's standards in Marvel, like, he's a rock star, but he's not. Like, you gotta remember, I was kind of spoiled. I had Todd McFarlane and then Eric Larson. Mark Bagley had big shoes to fill. But the reason I say it's a mixed blessing is, number one, because it kind of just carries over what I was used to reading Spider-Man, so I feel comfortable. But it also gives me that nostalgic feel to the book. If they put like a modern artist on there, I don't know if it would carry over the same way. So the premise of this book, if you're not already aware, is that they're telling the life story of Spider-Man in real chronological time. You know, in comic books, time doesn't really move, or it moves like super slow. So even though Spider-Man's been around for 60 years, oh, come on. Turn off these notifications. What am I? I'm a noob. Notifications. Even though Spider-Man's been around for 60 years or whatever, he himself is not, 80 years old. You understand. Comics characters kind of stay perpetual. They age a little bit. And then sometimes they'll end up rebooting them when they realize, oops, we've aged this character 20 years. Now what do we do? You do what the X-Men do, just go back in time. So this is going to be a story telling Spider-Man do comics as if comics did age. If in the 60s and then the 70s, he's going, in 1976, he'll be 10 years older. That's kind of fascinating. And I like that idea, this kind of what-if story. So here we get Peter Parker has been Spider-Man for 4 years, and it's in the middle of the Vietnam War, and the draft is going on. And if you're a longtime Spider-Man fan, then you kind of recognize the tropes. But you don't even have to really be a longtime Spider-Man fan. I think if you've watched all the movies, you'll be kind of familiar enough with the characters and different things. Or played the Spider-Man video game, which is fantastic. Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn's father, of course, who's Spider-Man's best friend, has eyes on Peter Parker, because Peter Parker's a budding scientist, and Norman is a scientist himself, but also really a businessman who just wants to exploit Peter's brain. And Peter's in college, and he's debating with himself whether or not to go into the war. And there's some really good scenes because he sees like Iron Man, Iron Man's joining the war effort. And he's just like, man, this war. And now Captain America is rumored. He's like, wait, oh man. If Cap signs up after already sacrificing so much in World War II, what excuse do I have? And so he's going to the bar. And the reason why is because Flash Thompson is having a send-off party. And because he's joining the war effort. Now, this is a part that I've heard some people kind of complain about, that they made Peter this sort of like, this really whiny baby, kind of like pissed off, kind of antisocial, like he kind of comes off as a holier than like that and then now kind of person, but that's actually what Peter Parker was. One of the things that makes Peter Parker really fascinating as a hero to me, and one of the great all-time heroes, is that he didn't just start off as this great guy that just saves people. He starts off kind of as an asshole. And he gets his powers, and I thank Sam Raimi so much in Spider-Man the movie, the first movie. Like, he captures this part a little bit. Didn't quite make him as much of a jerk, but he understood the essence of the character, that Peter just doesn't care about other people. And he had a rough time in high school, and he's kind of like the ultimate SJW character, right? This is the kind of character where SJWs come from. They had social problems, and they didn't really get to develop correctly with society, and now they're all angry and bitter, and the things they care about, they lash out in the wrong ways. And so Peter's, an idealist, but he expresses ideology in the wrong way. And so Flash represents everything that he hates. This successful guy, kind of, picked on him a little bit in high school and things like that. And, just Peter lashes out at him, and he realizes, like, Gwen pulls him away. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, I get it that you had problems with this guy, like, in school and whatever, but, like, he's going to war and he might not come back. He's going to die. You're just going to, like, be an asshole and stuff. And Peter thinks about it, and it's cool. And this is what makes Peter kind of a hero, someone we can admire, because he chokes it down and is like, I'm sorry. That's all. I'm really sorry. In high school, I had it was rough for me, and he confesses to Flash. And Flash is actually a good guy too, and he's developed, and he's just like, I get it. I'm sorry for how I was to you. He's growing up, he's maturing, and it's like he's like, tells him about, I'm proud of this uniform. It means something. I thought I turned off notifications, you piece of shit. And so he basically tells Peter, he's like, look, man, this uniform, it tells me where I stand with people. And, Peter's like, well, tell me, why are you going there? And he's like, it's what Spider-Man would do. And Peter's just shocked. And I knew this was coming because I had part of the book spoiled to me from the reviews. But I read this scene and it still kind of choked me up a little bit. Bravo. And he's like, he's got this sense of duty that makes him risk his life every day, even without showing his face. I was his number one fan. Well, now I can prove it by doing what he does, helping people. And Peter's like, but he's not going over there. He's not fighting. Yeah, well, he's pretty busy saving our bacon every day. But I'll tell you, if this war keeps going on, I bet you'll see him fighting real soon. And, then Flash is like, look, I got some ladies to hook up with before I go, and takes off. And it's a really good scene. And Norman Osborn shows up to the bar. And, obviously I'm going to spoil this book for you, but if you're thinking about this book at all, like I was, when I watched Gateways, like, stop here and go get the book. Read it, come back. It's still on stands. I'm sure it's still on stands, but I don't think it's going to be much longer. This is getting a lot of traction. I think a lot of people are realizing, oh shit, it's kind of like when White Knight came out. People started talking in the buzz, and all of a sudden you couldn't find copies anywhere. So Norman shows up, and he's like, look up at the bar, and he sees the pumpkin bomb. His spider sense is going off, and he's like, now don't act like anything's wrong. I know who you are. You got to step out of the bar. And so he leads him out, and then he starts talking to him about, like, crazy stuff. Like, he wants Peter to be his successor because his son is useless and all this stuff. And then Peter's just like, you're crazy. And they get in a fight and everything. And he pulls this sign down onto Goblin and crushes him. And then Peter, he's like, maybe if I don't save him, my secret will be safe and people will be safe. And you think right there, it's a great scene. It's great also. This is the little things that a lot of times people don't notice when they're reading comics. Where you place things in the page is very important. Understanding where your scene is going to happen in a page, whether it's going to happen at the beginning of a page, and because you see things. When I start on this panel, my peripheral vision sees these other things, so I kind of have things spoiled. When you tell something at the end of it, you have to turn the page. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm sitting here going, he's like, what's Peter going to do? Well, as a fan, I know Peter's going to be the hero. He's going to make the right choice. But I still, I can't see it. I can't see what he's doing until I flip the page. And that's a good writer understands that placement. And he's just like, damn it. And he's like, he saves him. And then Osborn's just like, thank you. And he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember who he is. And Peter's really perplexed. He's like, what do I do? Like, Norman wasn't in control of himself. He wasn't doing it on purpose. And he uses a spider sense to know that he's telling the truth. So then we get some more story, and Captain America's fighting some villains, some thugs on the street, and Peter happens to come across, or as Spider-Man. And this is really cool. I just love Captain America. And he's like, it's all over, fella. So, and then you're a dead man. And then Peter, butts in. He's like, what? You need a permit to shoot an American icon. Now you have to deal with... And then Captain America bonks him with the shield before anything can happen. And people are surrounding him and like, oh, Cap, that was amazing. And getting Cap all the attention. And then Captain hightails it out of there. And Peter's just thinking, man, that's what it's like to be beloved. Hey, Cap, wait up. And Peter has this little scene. He's like, with Captain America. And Zdarsky really... he really gets Captain in this scene, I think. I really was like, good treatment of Captain America. He says, thanks for the assist back there, Spider-Man. Didn't mean to run out on you. It's just... Spider-Man's, yeah, I noticed the We Love Cap fan club was pretty intense. I have similar problems. It's not normally. People have been more insistent lately, asking me about the Vietnam War and where I stand, blah, blah, blah. And Peter's like, well, what are you going to do? And then the Cap says, I spent 2 decades on ice. To wake up from the end of one war and to find myself facing another war. A very different one. It's a lot to process. I don't know if this war is right. But I do know people are dying, and in my country's name and ideology are tied to it. I'm going to go. I need to see it for myself, to understand it beyond the news reports and government briefings. Then what do I do? I have power. Shouldn't I have a responsibility to go? I don't know. And this scene gets me. It still kind of chokes me up, and Cap just grabs him by the shoulders. Son, responsibility doesn't mean you're at the whims of the world. We all have our own journey. This is mine. You have good work here. I see that every day. Responsibility is about a lot of things. But first and foremost, it's about selflessness and sacrifice. And seeing you throw yourself into danger's way, it's clear you understand both of those things. Let your heart guide you, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, Cap. I'll see you soon. This is a great freaking page. Fantastic. And as I was reading the book and I was going through before I got to this page, I was like, this is a good book, but it's not all that, like what everyone's making it out to be. And I got to this page and I was like, oh, man, this book is all that. Because this was outstanding. And to think this was modern Marvel, what is going on? What is going on? He's right. He's Captain America. Of course he's right. I can't live in fear of my identity being revealed that stop me from doing the right thing. And here we see, so he does an anonymous report, turns in Harry Osborn, and he's like, oh no, I forgot about Flash, I gotta hightail it out of here. So he gets in, of course he's late, because Peter Parker's always late, and Gwen Stacy's all pissed. But, dun dun dun, she notices something under his shirt. What's this? And then 1 year later, 1967. Oh, there's too many. We shouldn't move until... I'm not letting Iron Man steal the glory again. If there's Viet Cong hiding... So we get this... the shot of these Vietnam soldiers. And then all of a sudden, shock! And this guy takes it to the face. What's happening? Pachoo, pachoo, talk, talk. The Captain America shield. And then we see this guy. Heard you turned traitor. Can't believe I'm seeing it with my own. Shut up. You go back. And you tell Iron Man these people are under my protection. Next, Fathers and Sons. Next issue, the 70s. And that is Spider-Man Life Story number 1, the 60s in a nutshell. And this is a fantastic book. It is. This is the kind of book that the Eisner Awards were made for. Not, and I know it's like I say that word now and it's just become a shit show. Like the Eisners don't mean anything. It's just a popularity contest. People give awards to their friends for pieces of crap books. But this is what this is a good book. Bravo, Chip Zdarsky. Bravo. It's even more impressive because of today's climate and the low quality and expectations of comic books. This book could have been half as good, and it still would have been like, hey, it's a good book. Like Marvel just produces such trash, and I'm not being hyperbolic. Like I try to show things, and I don't do a lot of Marvel books because I don't buy them as much, but I think I'm going to start looking into more Marvel books because I want to diversify my channel. Diversity, yeah, right. But this book is that much more impressive. Had this book come out in the 90s, it still would have been a really good book, but we would have just been like, hey, yeah, good, that's a good book. But in today's climate, it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, so well done, Chip Zdarsky. Mark Bagley, I don't think is the right type of artist for this book. Even though he's a seminal Spider-Man artist, he just is more of the old school kind of comic where he's more about the action than the emotion. And so a lot of stuff we see in today's writing with close-ups of faces and things like that, that's not really Bagley's forte. And this is kind of an emotional book, but the writing carries that. And it is good to see Spidey drawn by an old hand, that's known for Spider-Man. So it's not a perfect book, but I don't really want to critique it. It's really good. And this is what Spider-Man books, this is what Marvel should be doing. And I'm not going to start singing praises of Marvel because it's not enough to have a handful of books that are good when you're producing like 100 books a month or whatever, something stupid. You need to have 50% of your line or better be good, right? Not 5% of your line. But I'm going to give credit where credit's due, and this book deserves all the credit. It's a 6-issue miniseries from what I understand, maybe 5. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't say anywhere. But pick this up. I believe it's quality. Everyone loves Everyone should love Spider-Man. Pick it up because not only is it a good book, not only is it Spider-Man, which everyone loves, because Marvel needs to know when they do shit like this, they'll make money and comics fans will be happy and they'll buy their books. So that Marvel will go, maybe we should make more good books without SJW politics and social engineering and preaching, okay? Also, because I think this, if you're a collector, I think this is going to be an important book. It's possibly, and part of my enjoyment of comics isn't just reading them; it's also collecting. I think that's a good joy. We need to bring that back. Anyways, I'm blabbing. I know this has been a long video. I've been trying to keep my videos short. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.